I'll let people know that we'll get started in just a minute. Good afternoon, everyone. Today's session will begin in just a moment. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining our breakout session for Economist positions at USDA's Economic Research Service. My name is Jennifer Smits, and I will be your host for today's session. Both agencies recently relocated to the Kansas City metropolitan area and are seeking qualified candidates for a variety of positions. We held a career expo at K-State Olathe in November and wanted to host another event for job seekers in the Kansas City region. Thank you again for joining us today. Before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to go over how the session will work. This webinar will be recorded and posted with a transcript and an FAQ document on workforusdakc.com and the careers page of ERS and NIFA. All participants are currently muted and will remain that way for the duration of the webinar. After the presentation, there will be time for questions. If you have a question, please submit it through the Q&A. Your question may be answered in writing through the Q&A feature or asked live during the Q&A time. All questions will become part of the FAQ document posted online. Today you will learn more about ERS Economist positions, including our current vacancies. In addition, representatives from Human Resources, Brandon Niknatovich, Kelly Martin, and Bill Koshwalik are also attending to help answer HR-specific questions. Now I would like to introduce today's panelists. Jay Varium is Acting ERS Associate Administrator and Director of ERS's Food Economics Division. Cindy Nickerson is Director of the Market and Trade Economics Division. Robert Gibbs is Acting Director of the Resource and Rural Economics Division. Now I will turn it over to Jay, who will give you a brief overview of ERS and the focus of work for the Food Economics Division, followed by Cindy, who will talk about the Market and Trade Economics Division, and then Robert, who will discuss the Resource and Rural Economics Division.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I'm Jay Varium. I'm the Director of the Food Economics Division. And I'll briefly talk about the agency, its mission and activities. So Economic Research Service provides trusted, objective, and timely research and statistics to inform decision makers. We try to anticipate trends and conduct research on emerging issues. We try to look forward what is likely to happen immediately in the midterm future so that we can inform public and private decision making about policies and programs and even business decisions. One thing that is important for us is we do not make policy recommendations. We provide the information so that the decision makers can make those decisions based on the best information available. ERS is one of the 13 principal federal statistical agencies. So that is a special designation, and that mandates us to provide timely economic statistics, build and strengthen data for research on a variety of topics from farm and rural households to consumer food choices and commodity markets. And we also we strive to provide with trusted sources of information and secure platforms for data dissemination. So we have a variety of data assets that we provide to the public and to the research community in a secure fashion. Next slide, please. So here is the ERS Organizational Chart. So the agency is led by the office of the administrator, and there is an office of the administrator which governs day-to-day functioning. And then the rest of the staff are divided into 4 divisions. Out of this, the Information Services Division provides all the technological support and is very vital to our efficient functioning. The rest of the divisions, the food economics division, the markets and trade, and the resources and rural economics, these are the research divisions where the economists and other social scientists are located. Now, each of these divisions are divided further into branches and so on. So that is the basic structure of the agency. Next slide, please. We provide information objective and timely fashion, as I mentioned in the beginning. And we provide this information in a variety of formats. But principally, this is all done through digital products which are published on our website. And these are in the form of economic research reports, which are deep and complex analysis of current issues and forward-looking issues. And then we translate these research into articles in one of our very popular and award-winning publication, The Amber Ways, which distills our research into understandable and easily communicated fashion. We also have data visualizations. And also, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have data products throughout the year that are made available and that can be downloaded and used by the user community. And our suite of data products encompasses statistical estimates, forecasts, and also economic and statistical indicators of how variety of subsectors within the food and agriculture sector are doing. In addition, ERS has a very wide-ranging and deep commodity outlook program, which provides timely and independent and objective information about agricultural markets. These products are extremely important for decision-making in the trade and commodity markets areas. These are called outlook reports, and these are among the most widely accessed of ERS products. And then on our website, we have a calendar that lists our products that are released on a regular basis. Next slide, please. So next, I will talk about the division that I am in charge of, the food economics division, and then we will move on to Cindy and Robert to cover other divisions. So the food economics division conducts research and analysis on policy relevant issues related to three parts of the food economy. You have the food retail sector, you have the consumers, and then you have the households, and then you have the government, which provides food, which provides food through food and nutrition assistance programs, and also regulates the food sector, for example, through what you might have seen in a grocery store, the food labels and so forth. So in the food and the retail sector, we look at issues such as food safety, prices of foods in the retail stores, access to healthy food, and the nutritional quality of different foods. In the realm of consumer behavior and outcomes, a lot of the policy attention is focused on the diet quality of the food choices, because these have real health consequences such as obesity. And then, of course, when it comes to food and nutrition assistance programs, these are some of the biggest programs that provide a social safety net for Americans, especially low-income Americans, through programs such as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, and the WIC program, the Women, Infants, and Children's Program, and the school meals, which provides the national school lunch as well as the school breakfast programs. And in addition to research in these areas, we also provide a variety of data and statistics on indicators such as food security, food prices, food purchases and expenditures, and also about the food supply chain. And the way to access our division's research and other details are listed in this URL here. So with that, I will turn it over to, I think, Cindy.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here and give you a brief overview of some of the work done in the Market and Trade Economics Division. as we call MTED. In our division, we strive to anticipate and produce policy relevant research, generally spanning a variety of program areas that have the common theme of markets and trade. And this includes factors affecting global agricultural markets and trade. Some examples include research on impacts of trade barriers, tariffs, regulations that countries impose related to food safety. It includes research on trade agreements, for example, the impacts of NAFTA and the soon to be implemented US, Mexico, Canada agreement and what these types of trade agreements mean for farmers. Myriad issues around competitiveness, the role of imports and exports and their impacts on food demand, disease outbreaks, effects on markets and trade. And now with this pandemic, we are thinking very seriously about research needs with respect to human pandemics and the effects on global supply chains. Economic drivers of food loss, looking at decisions made by producers to not bring produce to market, for example, and loss that occurs along the supply chain. Some of the reports that we produce related to our research are clustered here on the right, and I'll start, the examples I give start with the reports at the noon position. The global landscape of ag trade is one example. Another research area relates to international food security and development. We produce for USDA a benchmark report every year that looks at some of the food security conditions in low and middle income countries. And we were looking at the role of domestic supplies and imports in alleviating undernourishment in low and middle income countries. We also do research related to development, how population and income trends globally are affecting consumption patterns, food security, and trade opportunities. Farm policy and risk management strategies and research to inform on this is also another program area. We look at things like farmer response and participation in commodity support programs, their risk management decisions, how participation in these programs affects the variability in program expenditures. We do instrumental work with other USDA agencies on commodity analysis and forecasts. The bottom photo of a report cover on the right is an example of one of the outlook reports we produce every month. This particular one relates to livestock, dairy, and poultry. We have a variety of other commodity outlook reports related to oilseeds, feed grains, rice, cotton, sugars, etc. And so what we do is work very closely with other agencies in developing models and forecasts of the factors that are driving changes in supply, use, and prices for major crops and livestock markets. And we also do some statistical modeling that's instrumental in the department's 10-year projections. These projections are updated every year, and we have a team of economists, again, working closely with other agencies within USDA to produce those. And then finally, our commodity costs and returns program area encompasses a wide variety of research on issues related to different commodities and their profitability. And we have an example here of the profit potential of certified organic field crop production. And again, this research spans major commodities produced domestically. And we do this using a survey that is conducted by NASS. We partner with NASS to produce the survey. It's called the Agricultural Resource Management Survey. And that's instrumental not only in producing commodity costs and returns, but also generating opportunities for a wide variety of research related to the ag sector. And at the bottom of the screen here is the URL that takes you to our place on the website where you can learn a little bit more about work done in the Market and Trade Economics Division. I'm happy to turn this over to Robert.
Okay, thank you, Cindy, and good afternoon, everyone. Well, the Resource and Rural Economics Division, or RRED for short, conducts research on a wide range of topics related to farms, natural resources, and rural America. So let me give you a little flavor of the topics that we cover in the research here in our RED. So one of the critical research areas for us is to identify and analyze the drivers of innovation on the farm, including the adoption of new technologies like new types of seeds or precision equipment that make our farmers more productive. Our research also looks at the importance of scientific research and development in agriculture and how it contributes to the nation's ability to grow more food with less. Our RED examines how climate change and extreme weather events are likely to affect crop and livestock production now and in the future. Also, agricultural production has significant effects on soil, on water, and other elements of the natural environment. And our research examines these linkages as well as the impact of USDA conservation and other resource-related programs on farmers' stewardship of the land. A major USDA policy objective is to strengthen the financial performance of farm businesses and the well-being of farm operators and their families. So our RED reports trends in farmers' income, assets, and debts, and we analyze the forces behind those trends. And I would also say we're responsible for producing the nation's statistics on farm income. Several times a year, both estimates and forecasts into the future of that income. Finally, our RED researchers investigate the drivers of economic and population change in our rural communities, much of which is not really agriculture based, and how those changes affect employment, income, health, and many other indicators of well-being for the rural population and rural places. Cindy talked about it, but I'll mention it as well, that our RED has a key role in planning and implementing ARMS, the Agricultural Resource Management Survey. And that is the nation's premier annual survey of farm operators and farm households and covers the 48 contiguous states. ERS researchers often rely on ARMS for essential production and resource use data, often not available anywhere else. Our researchers also have the opportunity to contribute to the survey questionnaire to actually add questions to support high priority research. Like the other divisions, our RED produces a number of reports each year, as well as data and other products that communicate our research findings directly to USDA decision makers and their staff, as well as Congress, other federal agencies, and the public at large. You can see a sampling of these reports on the right side of the screen. And with that, I think I'm turning it back over to Jennifer. Is that right?
Yes. Thanks, Robert and Cindy and Jay. We're almost ready for questions. And as a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, please type it into the Q&A box. This slide provides a list of our current economist vacancies. All of these positions have multiple vacancies and are located in Kansas City. In addition, not listed on this slide, we currently have a senior executive service position open, the division director for the Resource and Rural Economics Division. And you can find information on our website, on the ERS careers page, about all of these positions. And if you want to apply to any of them, you would do that through USA Jobs. Next slide. And we're about ready for Q&A. As a reminder, just type your question into the Q&A feature and we'll get to as many as we can today. In addition, if you'd like to learn more about ERS, we encourage you to go to our website and sign up for email updates. The icon is on the bottom of the homepage or any of the pages, and you can click on that and fill out to sign up for any you're interested in. You can also follow us on Twitter at USDA_ERS or follow us on LinkedIn. So we're a couple questions coming in. I'll ask a couple to our hosts as they or to our panelists as they come in. And first question for Jay, could you tell us a little bit about what training and professional development opportunities there are for economists at ERS? Jay, you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. That's always typical of Zoom calls, but happy to answer that question about training opportunities. Certainly, we want our staff to thrive in the workplace. So we have a very dedicated training program, and there are many opportunities in the federal sphere to acquire training. Some of them are related to the job and they're required, but many of them are to improve your skills, whether it is for a presentation, whether it's meeting with the media, or research skills. There are certain statistical courses or management skills. As you go through the career, you may want to think of you might think of a management career in the future. So there are management courses that will teach you how to manage and get the people skills and other skills necessary to run a very efficient and collegiate workplace. So there are these opportunities, and these are provided, and there is a dedicated program for that. And then these are availed of by our staff on a regular basis. So yes, we provide training at all levels to all of our staff. Thank you.
And I would add to that our economists often attend professional conferences. They are presenting their work, getting feedback from academia, just as one would if one were an assistant professor, for example. So lots of opportunity.
And Cindy, to follow up on that question, do analysts and research staff have opportunities to collaborate across units within the agency?
Absolutely. We, of course, have divisions and branches, you know, so that we have structure to our organization. But those are not intended to be pipelines or to create barriers to cross-branch, cross-division types of work. Some great examples are research that we've done in the food loss space. My staff have collaborated with the Food Economics Division. In MTED, we focus more on food loss issues on the farm and in the supply chain up to the retail sector. Jay's staff has expertise on consumer food loss issues and some of the demand drivers that affect supply decisions. Other examples include some of the farm policy work that we do and climate change work. MTED staff have worked very closely with staff in the Resource and Rural Economics Division. And I understand and know that there's work going on between food economics and RRED. So lots of opportunities.
Thank you. And Robert and Jay, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think that covers it pretty well. I would say just, I guess if I added one thing, it would be we try to reflect what's going on in the world today, in the research world and the policy world. And so many of the questions that we're called upon to address really do cut across different research areas. It really is increasingly sort of interdisciplinary and inter-subject. And so it would be really short-sighted of us to stovepipe our research programs and not reach across administrative units and look for teams, build teams that can look more broadly, sort of look at problems through a wide lens. So exactly as Cindy says, I think All three divisions collaborate quite a bit, and we're always looking for ways to do more.
Jay, do you have anything you wanted to
No,
say?
Robert and Cindy put it very well. I think,
Okay.
you know, the society and the questions that are asked require these type of collaborations. And certainly that is part of very much integral to ERS's work.
Thank you. So our next question comes from one of our participants. What are the most important skills to work at ERS? Jay, do you want to start with that one?
Yes, certainly. And the type of skills that you bring to bear will depend, of course, on your job and the type of tasks that are assigned or expected of you. But economists, if you're talking about economists, there is a certain set of skill levels that are very special to the discipline. There is a certain way of looking at the problems in the society. You know, they boil down to choices and constrained resources and how those decisions are made. So how do you put those into practice and answer practical questions? So that is in framing the answer to a question and to look at all available options. So that's a general skill. More specific skills would mean having a knowledge of statistical methods and data analysis skills to analyze. Sometimes it is a small amount of data. Sometimes it's what we call big data. There are huge databases that ERS has access to. And also putting together the correct data to answer these questions. So those are kind of the work-related skills in getting the things out and producing these products that are important to our customers. And then the other skills are being able to work as a team. Because ERS is a collaboration of economists and other staff, we appreciate the skills that people bring to the workplace in order to make it a very collegial and productive work environment. So I would say those are some of the very general skills that are needed.
Okay, thank you. Robert and Cindy, anything else to add to Jay's answer?
So I agree with everything Jay said, and I might just add that clearly as economists, we seek people who have a strong grounding in economic theory and methods. And to succeed in ERS, this doesn't happen without training as needed, but we look for people with strong communication skills, both orally and in writing. A lot of what we do gets communicated through reports. It gets communicated through presentations. One of the unique things about ERS, I would say, is that there's a lot of opportunity to learn how to present economic information in various ways. It gets presented to academic stakeholders, which isn't necessarily the same way it would get presented to someone who's not an economist, but who has a depth of expertise in some other field. So ERS is a great place to work where you learn to communicate economic findings and information in different formats.
Thank you. So we have another question from an attendee, and it looks like they have a follow-up as well. At the GS-12 level, how common is it for an economist to move from one division to another? And I think the same person is asking about also economists transferring or transitioning from another USDA agency to ERS. And Robert, do you want to take that one?
Well, I'll start, sure. So it's certainly possible. I think as we've indicated, we try to keep fences low within the agency and across divisions in terms of working together. And it's certainly possible that someone could move from one division to the next. Typically what happens is when we hire someone, at least in our RED, and I think this is generally true elsewhere in ERS, that we hire them with a specific subject matter expertise in mind. We have certain research areas that are high priority for us, and we bring people in to develop a research program in that area. So, and I think for many people, it's valuable for them to develop depth of expertise in a particular topic area. So in that sense, I think people tend to stay in the area they are, but there's certainly nothing that says that over time, you can't broaden your expertise into other areas, and you may even find that the place that you broaden yourself into is in another division. So we don't prevent that from happening. It's sort of an organic process that may happen over time in a person's career, if you will. In terms of people from another federal agency coming over and transferring into ERS, certainly, and we have that happen all the time. We have some of our very best and most productive people come from other places within USDA, but also other federal agencies like the Bureau of Labor Statistics or the Bureau of Economic Analysis. I can think of several recent examples in my division where that's been the case. So, you know, if you've got the right skill set, then there's absolutely nothing to prevent you from coming to work for us.
Thanks, Robert. Jay, do you have anything, or Cindy, do you have anything to add?
No, I think Robert put it very well. Moving across divisions is not that common because of the reasons that Robert mentioned. However, there is nothing that prevents someone from moving if, as Robert put it, they grow and organically increase their skill set and they find something else is interesting. And an appropriate position or an opportunity opens in other division. In that case, that is a possibility, certainly. And other federal agencies, absolutely. We have, in addition to what Robert said, we have people from FDA, for example, coming over, and so forth. So you know, it is the skills that they bring and how they match to our requirements that determines whether one can be coming into ERS or not.
Great, thank you. Next question comes from one of our participants. What research portfolio should I have to be a good candidate for a position in each division? How many papers published, for example? Jay, we can start with you on that one.
Sure. So we have positions that are, many of our positions are starting positions, whether it's in a research career or an analyst career. These are starting positions, which means we might typically be recruiting a PhD economist or typically recruiting a fresh master's level candidate. So at that level, having the degree and then associated work is what is important. They certainly would have a thesis paper or a dissertation papers coming out of that. And then some of the researchers might have worked on other papers as co-authors and so forth. So certainly, you know, if you have a publication record or ability to write, you know, and present economic research results, they certainly enhance your chance of being part of ERS. Oftentimes, that is not a requirement at those starting levels. But for higher level positions in those tracks, certainly if you have, say, 2 years of experience or 3 years of experience, or some of the senior positions we are looking at very high level, you know, maybe 10 years of experience, then certainly we are absolutely looking for a publication record and a production record of, you know, perhaps it is data products that you have really succeeded in building a big community of researchers and being able to answer those questions. So it does depend on the positions, I would say.
And Robert or Cindy, do you want to add anything for your divisions?
Just that to reiterate what Jay said about your resume, if you've got publications beyond, let's say you have a PhD and you will have a dissertation or a master's thesis if you have a master's degree, Having additional publications is just an indicator for us of productivity and your ability to write, and it gives us another window into your skill set. But I would want to emphasize that it's not at all necessary. Don't think that because you don't have a portfolio of publications that we would not consider you, because nothing could be farther from the truth.
Right, and I would just add that you know, we recognize for some of the positions we hire for, which may be commodity specific or topic specific, that if people are applying from other agencies, they may not necessarily have publications that are available to the public, so they're not publicly posted somewhere, but more internal documents. And so we look for evidence of communication in a variety of ways, not necessarily what's publicly available.
Thank you. Our next question comes from another participant. Does the USDA ERS allow for use of open source software like R Python? What type of quantitative technical skills assessment does ERS use in the hiring process? Cindy, do you want to take that one?
Well, we don't make you sit down at a computer and run a program or develop code. I've done that in my former career, but we don't do that at ERS. What we do is, yes, we do support use of software like R, Python, etc. And we look for evidence in the types of outputs that you've produced. So articles, presentations, etc. And also through conversations. Part of our hiring process for most of our positions, if you make it through the screening interviews and your skill set seems to be a good match with our needs, we invite you for an on-site interview, and those on-site interviews would include some demonstration of your skills. And so we get a sense of your technical expertise through that type of presentation.
Great, thank you.
Does anyone, Robert or Jay, do you have anything to add to that?
I think we do ask typically, I'll say typically, and maybe get clarification from our human resources colleagues. We will ask a question or two about quantitative skills and the types of software that you have familiarity with. And that's just one indicator for us of what your skill set is. But I think, as Cindy says, we do a much sort of broader questioning during the recruitment and in the interview process.
Jay, did you have anything, or Brandon from the HR side?
Hi, Jennifer. Yes, so I'll touch a little on that. So
okay.
If for a particular position, a hiring manager indicates that a particular software would enhance someone's skills on the job, sometimes it'll be used in the assessment questionnaire, but in no way would that be a screen out to disqualify someone. Just used as a assessment question to determine if someone has that experience, that they might be more likely to succeed in the position.
Thank you. And then our next question from another participant. Could you describe the general career path, what it's like for a PhD level ag economist at ERS? Jay, do you want to start with that one?
Yes, absolutely. So typically a fresh PhD would come into the GS-12 level. And one of the great things about ERS is that there is a clear-cut path for the economists with fresh PhDs to go up at different levels and to reach the highest grade, which is a GS-15. And that process is through reviews and panels, anonymous panels looking at your work portfolio on a certain on a yearly, on a regular schedule. For example, let me take the example of a fresh GS-12 coming in after a couple of years, you have worked and you have a certain suite of products. And then we can't tell exactly the time there, but once you have a certain suite of products, then you could start thinking about getting promoted to the 13 level and then put together that package. And there is a panel at the agency level to look at that. And your supervisor will help you to guide you through that process. First of all, affirming that, yes, you have enough of a portfolio of work to be considered by a panel. And the panel would look at the package and make that recommendation. And then as you go from a 13 to a 14, the process is somewhat similar, but it is the panel will be much more of a formal, anonymous type of peer panel that will review the package. And there are guidebooks and very transparent processes of how to put together that portfolio of work to go through the different steps. So the progress through the different grade levels is quite well documented and transparent, and it depends on the portfolio of work and your productivity, and above all, the impact of your work. Right. As you reach higher levels, it becomes more and more important that you have a national level, capability to lead a particular program area and to have the impact in variety of decision making. That is the mission of ERS. So Cindy, you want to take up on that?
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate that last point. There's no set number of outputs that constitute a package that would get you promoted. It's a combination of what you've produced, your stature in the profession, and as Jay mentioned, the impact of your work. And impact is essential. The work that we do is intended to be relevant to the USDA mission and to anticipate the research and information needs for decision makers. And so successful researchers at ERS have research that is helping to inform on decisions that are being made. So that impact factor matters quite a bit.
And Robert, did you have anything for that one?
No, I think that says it well.
Thank you. In our next question, are there any economist positions open for specialty crops, for example, aquaculture?
That's my question. Yes, there are several of the links that you see on our job page would enable you to apply for those positions. We're hiring at the GS9 level, the GS 11, 12, 13 level, and I'm hoping in the coming days we'll have other types of positions available as well. Aquaculture is a topic that ERS has invested in periodically in the past. It's one of the specialty crops. We do have a research area in specialty crops, aquaculture being one of them. Our fruits and tree nuts program and our vegetables and pulses programs are other examples.
Thank you. And then our next question, Jay, if you want to start with this one, does ERS hire candidates from the private sector?
Yes. I mean, if they are economists, since we are talking about economist positions, and oftentimes we have social scientist positions as well, more general social science skills. I don't see there is any bar against someone from private sector from moving into ERS. And similarly, ERS economists have moved into private sector as well. So again, it depends on the match of your skills and the position requirements. There is certainly the question of if you have several years of experience in the private sector, you may be, the publications are not typical, research publications. So there might be a question of, how the productivity and the ability to publish and, meet the needs of ERS are shown or are assessed. But I don't think there is any particular bar about that happening.
If I can add to that, I would just add that in the Commodity Outlook program, absolutely, we value highly depth of industry expertise to contribute to our market outlook and forecasting programs. I would also note that we hire from the NGO sector. Research organizations are another place that we look for skill sets in our research areas at ERS.
And I would add that occasionally we have leadership positions and management positions, and these positions also might be suited for someone with the sort of the skills that are needed to lead a team and to grow a program of research.
Thank you. The next question, Brandon may want to chime in on this one. The person's asking about experience with data clearing in quantitative analytics and articles, but in fields like psychology and sociology. And is there on-the-job training in economics, or if there are any positions like this?
So I kind of will give a general response. But I would just encourage the applicant, when you are searching on USA Jobs, to look under the qualifications section of each job opportunity announcement. That will identify the qualifying experience that we look for when we're determining whether you're qualified or not. So because every job is different, I kind of have to give a general answer.
Thanks, Brendan. Cindy, Jay, or Robert, do you have anything for that one, or? Okay.
Well, I know in our RED, like MTED and FED, we hire mostly economists into our research and analytical and outlook positions. But we do, from time to time, also have openings for other types of social scientists. And in that case, the qualifications are often broader. Now, even for our economist positions, you don't have to be an economist to apply. I think it's based more on the kinds of coursework or other work experience that you've had relevant to economics and not, so it's beyond just a title. But for non-economist positions, we definitely do consider people who have a wide range of background in the social sciences, including psychology, sociology, and related fields.
Thank you. And we don't have any more questions at the moment, but we still have a little bit of time. So if you have a question you'd still like to ask, please submit it through our Q&A. And in the meantime, I'll ask another question of our panelists. Cindy, could you kind of talk about a typical year in the life? What are some things an economist does at ERS in a typical year?
Certainly. So I'll talk about a typical year for a research economist and then follow with a typical year for one of the commodity analysts that work in MTED, because it's a slightly different outlook. So for research economists, typically they are working closely with branch chiefs and others to develop relationships with stakeholders, understand what stakeholders' research needs are, and developing a work plan that reflects emerging priorities, high priority research topics, and identifying what types of data can be used to answer research questions. And so a typical year would include doing analytical studies, a combination of ERS research, journal articles, presenting at academic conferences to get feedback on works in progress. And it would also include doing what we call staff analyses and briefings. These are requests that come in from USDA agencies, people on the Hill, sometimes the White House, within the federal government, who are looking for quick turnaround reactions to some pressing matter that they need economic information about. And so as one progresses through their career, they become known as the go-to person for these types of questions and information requests. And so during the course of a year, a researcher may get, well, depending on the issue and your research background, you may get anywhere from a couple of these to a dozen or so to respond to on short turnaround. It could be a question that takes you an hour to respond to. It could be something that takes a couple of days if you need to run a model, for example. And also, as you do research, the more informative it is and high value it is to decision makers, the more likely it is you'll have an opportunity to brief very high-level decision makers on the results of your work. That could include agency heads, it could include undersecretaries within USDA, it could include congressional staff, even Congress people themselves. So there are opportunities to do that kind of work. Your typical year might also include providing a very digestible written article on research that you've done, which could get published in our Amber Waves magazine. And it could also include pulling out a couple charts to bring more attention to the work that you've done. So we look for a variety of ways to communicate the research that we do throughout the course of the year, not just sitting and doing the research itself. On the Outlook side, and this may pertain to some of the other types of positions in the Food Economics Division and the Resource and Rural Economics Division that relate to Food Outlook or the Farm Income Outlook. These types of positions would not have as heavy of a research component to them, in the sense that there wouldn't be as many research reports that get written or journal articles that get written. In the case of the Market and Trade Economics Division, our Outlook economists are contributing to monthly forecasts. So they're producing monthly reports and doing monthly modeling. So, and also producing data for consumption by users, data that we put in on our website in various forms. So the nature of a typical year differs a bit depending on your job description, but lots of opportunity to do great and policy relevant research and to get it in the hands of people that can use it.
Thank you. Jay, do you have anything else to add?
I think Cindy covered a lot of ground on that. So, to put it in another way, a typical economist would have a portfolio of work, long-term to medium-term research projects that might take up to 2 years or perhaps even more to gather the data and do the analysis and to produce the results, especially if it is a fresh project that cuts across different areas. So there could be that, and there could be a variety of products that are done within a year. And then there will be data products that the researchers would be working on that need to be cleaned up and developed and then published on the website for the customers. And there would be these other staff analysis, the briefings, and the Amber Waves sort of publications for the general public and informed stakeholders, informed consumers, and so forth. So it's a portfolio of work at any given time that folks are working on. And in the middle of that, you might get pulled into certain immediate needs depending on your skills. So that makes it exciting as well, because there is some need from a very high level policymaker about some question, and it might need a page of an answer or it could be a report that Congress might ask, produce a report within 180 days on this particular topic. So then you might be pulled and made part of a team which has to deliver on that report as well. So there are a lot of demands from our customers, and so as a result, there is a portfolio of work on any particular economist's desk at any given time.
Thank you for your answer. Robert, do you have anything on that one?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. And then we've got another question from a participant. We have a few more minutes. What would be the difference between a good candidate for research ag economist positions versus an ag economist position? And Jay, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose this is the distinction between a position that focuses on research as opposed to more analysis and statistical reporting. But we like to emphasize that within ERS, most positions do have a research component in the sense that you are required to study your particular area in a fairly deep manner, understand what's going on, what are the theoretical developments, what are the sort of the developments happening in the world. You might get that knowledge by reading the journal articles or other publications in the field and so forth. So every position has that kind of a research and related skills component to that. But your particular position might be, as a research economist, it may be medium to long-term research and data development on a particular area. For example, in FED, in the food economics division, we have a focus on one of our areas is food security or the prevalence of food insecurity in the country. So that is a very specific topic, and associated with that, there are a lot of tasks. So the research economist working on that would be developing that area in terms of how do you measure food insecurity, and then how do you gather the data and analyze and report on the basic indicators and also the causes of food insecurity. And then what are the consequences of food insecurity? So these are all interesting to our stakeholders. So, and the analysts would be more focused on, for example, data visualizations is one example, or more regular reporting of these statistics is another example. So I would say those are the, they are subtle, but those are some of the differences.
Thank you. And we're almost out of time, but I think we have time for one more question. So somebody's asking if they're applying for a position at the GS9 level, how do they, is there a way they can, if they're particularly interested in one division, is there a way they can specify, or how do candidates get assigned to divisions when they're open across divisions for vacancies? Robert, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So when, as the person was asking, if you apply to a vacancy announcement that indicates multiple divisions, then what happens is that eventually the hiring managers in those divisions will get a certificate with the name of all of the applicants that have been certified by Human Resources as official job candidates, and then all of the divisions that are interested in that vacancy announcement will take a look at the full range of job candidates on that list. So for instance, if Jay, Cindy, and I were the hiring managers for a particular round of positions, then we would all review the applications, the resumes, the material from those job candidates and determine which of those applicants might best fit the needs for our particular positions. In many cases, your skill set as an applicant will really fit well into just one division, but it's often the case where two or even all three of our divisions may be interested in what you bring to the positions that we have open. So in that case, we will all talk to you, give you an interview, and then decide internally on where the best match is between the skills that you bring and the position requirements that we have. And I would add that your preferences are taken into account too. That's important to, it's important for us that you're happy in your job. We have, I think, a very highly productive and high morale workforce. People really like what they do. We would not hire someone into a position that that we felt like they would not be happy doing. So that's important as well as looking at that skill match.
Thank you. I think that's all the questions we have time for. So we'll go ahead and conclude today's session. Again, if you have any questions that you think of after the session, please email them to careers@usda.gov and we'll follow up with an answer. We're also going to post the recorded webinar, a transcript, and an FAQ on the workforusdakc.com website. So if we didn't get to your question today or you think of any others, we will get an answer to you. So thank you to our panelists and thank you to everyone who participated, and this will conclude today's breakout session.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks.